Hello friends. This is a channel about stories. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our new videos. I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience.
If you woke up tomorrow in the year 1000, one thing would kill you faster than any sword, plague, or war. Not violence, not disease, bread. Specifically, bread that was slowly poisoning entire villages without anyone knowing why. People would dance uncontrollably in the streets, scream that their skin was on fire, hallucinate demons crawling on the walls, and then die. For centuries, nobody understood what was happening. They called it St. Anthony's fire. It wasn't a curse. It was a fungus called ergot, growing on damp rye grain. And when that grain got ground into flour and baked into the one food almost everyone in Europe depended on to survive, it turned dinner into a death sentence. That's the world we're stepping into today. Not a turkey legs and feasting nights like the movies show you. A world where food was terrifying, unpredictable, and, depending on where you were born, either shockingly advanced or brutally desperate. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the people who lived 1,000 years ago were, in some places, eating better than people did 500 years later, and in other places, one bad harvest away from starving to death. So let's start with the food nobody wanted to eat, but everyone had to. Picture a peasant's table in the year 1000, somewhere in France, England, or Germany. There's no fork. Forks were considered vain, almost sinful. The church actually associated them with the devil's pitchfork. There's a knife, maybe a spoon, and a thick slab of old bread called a trencher, which wasn't even meant to be eaten. It was a plate. Stew soaked into it all day, and at the end of the meal, if you were lucky, you got to eat your plate too. And what was in that stew? Something called pottage. A thick, gray, boiled mixture of whatever grain, beans, and vegetables a family could scrape together. Barley, oats, peas, onions, cabbage. It sat over the fire for days, sometimes weeks, with new ingredients tossed in as old ones ran out. It sounds unappetizing, but here's the twist. Pottage was actually the reason most peasants survived at all. Meat was not an everyday food for the poor. Not because they didn't like it, but because livestock was too valuable alive. A cow gave you milk and pulled your plow. A chicken gave you eggs. You didn't kill your retirement plan for one dinner. So most people in medieval Europe were, in practice, eating something close to a vegetarian diet. Not by choice, but by economics. Meat was a luxury reserved for holidays, weddings, or the nobility. And when the poor did eat meat, it often wasn't the parts you'd expect. Nothing went to waste. Organs, blood, feet, snouts, all of it got boiled, stuffed, or turned into sausage. Waste was a sin you couldn't afford. Now, here's where it gets darker. Bread made up nearly 70 to 80% of the average peasant's calories. And when the harvest failed, which happened often, sometimes years in a row, that bread wasn't just less available, it got worse. Desperate millers ground moldy grain, weevil-infested grain, even grain mixed with sawdust or ground acorns just to stretch supplies. That's how ergot poisoning spread. People weren't being careless. They were choosing between eating contaminated bread or not eating at all. And that single fact tells you something huge about the year 1000. Survival wasn't about taste. It was about calories, and calories were never guaranteed. But here's the twist you probably didn't expect. While European peasants were boiling gray mush and gambling with poisoned rye, on the other side of the world, someone was inventing the restaurant. Travel to Kaifeng, the capital of Song Dynasty China, around the same exact year, and the picture flips completely. This was arguably the most food-obsessed city on Earth. Streets stayed open and lit through the night, something almost unheard of in medieval Europe, where cities went dark and silent after sunset. In Kaifeng, you could walk out at midnight and buy roasted duck, noodle soup, dumplings, skew and meats, and sweet pastries from vendors competing for your attention like it was a modern food court. Restaurants as an actual business model, menus, seating, specialized chefs, delivery service were thriving in China centuries before Europe had anything close. Rice was the backbone of the diet in the south, wheat and millet in the north, and tea had already become a cultural institution with entire etiquette systems built around how to prepare and serve it. Soy sauce, fermented bean paste, and an enormous range.
I hope you enjoyed this story. If you liked it, please leave a like. But I have to say goodbye, friends. See you next time.